Hello and welcome to a busy day of live in the money media content. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatow, back with you in the Brooklyn Bunker. Once again, we just did one show talking about Santa Anita's opening day pick six, the $1 opening day pick six. Going to be talking in a little bit about some of the races that are going to be part of this Boku weekend of Breeders Cup prep action this weekend and next weekend. Really, you're going to get to see a lot of the stars come out. A man who I know is looking forward to checking all that stuff out as he formulates his entry for this year's Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge. A man whose total earnings in that event are certainly in the top three of humans, I would think. Maybe top five at least, but I think it's probably top three. He's Jonathan Kinchin. What's up, JK?
I didn't think about that. Yeah, I mean, I was trying to think of like another sneaky score I might have had, but I've either been second, or zero in my time since playing the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge. So I don't have a sneaky one that can help boost my overall earnings.
And I would say that means you're playing it right. You know, that's one thing that I learned very early on in contests, and in a way, it stands for mythical contests as well. It's like, find a lot of the times you're going to find the very best players at the top of the leaderboard or at the bottom of the leaderboard, and not so much in the middle. This is it for our regular season, so we're going to have some big news coming out of today. We're giving away essentially on this show a $10,000 Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge seat, and the competition is fierce for that top spot. Top 10 finishes earn you points. If this is your first day playing, you know what? You still get a chance to, you're not going to win the tour starting today, but you do have a chance to qualify for our playoffs, which start next week. We're going to have 80 players, the top two from each week we ran, as well as the other top-rated people on the tour, and that's a heck of a battle in and of itself. We'll say hi to Dan, chiming in from South Africa. We always love to acknowledge our international viewers on the show. A little bit later on, we have Vanessa Ryle. She's going to be giving us the lowdown on I think it's 6 international win in your in races we have this weekend. All the stuff happening at Longchamp on Sunday. We've also got action from Newmarket. So really, for a good 12 hours a day, you have a chance to watch exciting racing this weekend. JK, I know you're looking forward to it. Your action, your mind will mainly be focused on New York. I would suppose you're going to be working this weekend.
You know, I'm actually taking Saturday off. We're going to take Austin to the Texas football game, so I'll be paying attention, but I won't be working. But I will be paying attention
on the phone.
You know. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's tough when you're at a sporting event. The Wi-Fi is usually not very cooperative when it comes to watching races. But if there's a way, I will figure it out.
It's a loaded, it's loaded stuff. Did you happen to take a look at the overnight?
I did. I saw. I'm obviously excited to see Cody's Wish getting back around one turn, see what happens there. I want to give. I'm going blank on the name, but I'll get it if I think about it long enough. Chad Brown, Coolmore, the horse that ran in Saratoga that didn't run very well, that kind of ran off.
In that race? Here?
Yeah, the long distance turf horse.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about the Vosburg still, and I was like, accretive is
Stone Age.
Gotcha.
Stone Age.
Gotcha.
Looking forward to seeing if Stone Age maybe a little bit sharper, second off of a break. You came in off a long layoff last time, didn't behave all that well. So hoping that maybe he can keep his act together a little bit. So looking forward to see how those couple of horses run.
Yeah, that's going to be definitely fun to see. I'm going to be doing a horse-by-horse write-up of the Turf Classic. You can find that over at theraces.com. I'm going to do the same thing for the Woodward, which is kind of a fun race this year, Jonathan. Definitely worth diving into at some point for you, just because it's got a little bit of Island of Misfit Toys feel with, Cody's Wish obviously now turning back, looking to go shorter in distance, and White Abario training up to the Classic. And we have an international runner in there as well. There's a lot of ways you can go. Algiers is the horse shipping over, who was most recently seen in the Dubai World Cup, and that's going to be a really interesting line of form to follow, because the winner of that race, Ushba Tesoro, just recently came back in Japan, won easily in a preppy type race, but if you take that Dubai World Cup form, what if you look at the figure it usually takes to win the Dubai World Cup, and you look at the figures that the fastest 3-year-olds here are running, or even the fastest older horses, that horse is going to be in with a shot. And we've obviously seen the Japanese domination in recent years. If Algiers were to run well on Saturday, that would certainly boost, I would think, from this form analyst where I sit, that would certainly boost that one's chances. Are you open to the idea of an international winner of the Breeders' Cup Classic this year?
No, not usually. I think it's going to take a pretty special horse to come over here and kind of shine on our biggest stage when there's a lot of horses that are all pointing there, right? In the Dubai World Cup, when you get one or two of ours, in the Saudi Cup, when you get one or two of ours, I think that there's an opportunity for the international dirt horses to kind of jump up and bite you. But when you have to deal with an entire slew of ours that are pointed to our biggest race, I think it's pretty hard for an average horse to kind of get cute on that day. You talk about the Woodward, another horse I'm interested in seeing, and our friend Mark Toothaker at Spinthrift, who I had on JK +1 this week, actually reminded me that Zandon was going to be running in this race.
Yep.
Zandon, look, he's kind of become a bit of a bridesmaid. Or we can call him a groomsman too. We're not going to limit it to the ladies here. He's a little bit of a groomsman, but he's, he ran into Repo Rocks when Repo Rocks was breathing fire.
Yep.
He ran into Cody's Wish when Cody's Wish was Cody's Wish going around one turn. And then he ran into a White Abario who ran off the screen as well. So I still think that maybe there's a big performance somewhere in there for Zandon.
I made the same point in my write-up. Zandon ran a very good race in the Whitney, only to be overshadowed by White Abario's Tour de Force. Has a nasty habit of finding one better, but much of that can be put down to bad luck and the quality of these Grade 1 races he's been running in, as opposed to any kind of character flaw. And I'll tell you what, the race sets up for him. I feel like he's naturally maybe a little bit more of a closer than the role that I'm not saying it was a jockey error, but I think he was close in a race that had a fast shape and still stuck on okay. And now we can probably, that same kind of speed might put him in more of a, second flight, I should say, position. And there's plenty of speed and he can finish. So he's going to be short price in this race, I think.
And look, and with a horse like Zandon, I think that, if a friend of mine who was a serial groomsman, or a friend of mine was a serial bridesmaid, and they asked if I had any advice, I would say, yeah, start picking your social circles a little bit better. It feels like Zandon's doing that. He's getting away from the bad groups, and he's found a group that's a little bit more his speed. But, I don't want to ignore Charge It either. Charge It at times has run Breeders' Cup Classic worthy performances. He just hasn't been consistent in that arena, so he can always jump up and run a big race.
Quarterbacks and Vogue models are great, but maybe just hang around with the normal models and some wide receivers. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, come hang out at the paddock bar is what I'm trying to say.
I do know of we do have friends who got engaged at the paddock bar, and we also once saved a marriage at the paddock bar. That's a whole other story. So there might be something there. Will says he thinks Zandon needs the pace. I think Zandon's going to get that pace when it comes to this year's Woodward. That's going to be fun. All right, they're out on the track for this next race here at Belmont. Belmont at Aqueduct. I do want to, and I think we have time with 5 minutes listed up there on the screen. I do want to take a quick look at the leaderboard, Craig. So maybe we'll start the overall tour leaderboard and then today's leaderboard. This looks like it is today's leaderboard, and we're getting down to it. And Stephen McNatten, I think that's one of the names that he's been up there for tour points. So he has an opportunity to score here potentially twice with 2 entries. He's split in this race and then runner the rest of the way. So that's very, very interesting. Let's go to the overall tour leaderboard as well. There it is. And so, all right. So Jeff Van Dree in the lead with that 350. McNatten down there with 180. So he'd have to score on both of those tickets to get up to where Jeff Van Dree is. Then my next question is, where's Michael Domable and Brendan Snodgrass on today's leaderboards, and Julie LeBoyko, because they're all within shouting distance. Let's go back quickly to there and see if we see any of those 3 names. Let's see. Well, it looks like they're going to have to get busy because I'm not seeing them in the top 40 or so. But anyway, we'll give you the lowdown on that. We'll send some tweets later congratulating our tour winner. It's been a pretty good group of company to be in. David Browning and Greg Kingma, both terrific Tour champions the first 2 years, and we're going to be adding another name to that list, as well as rounding out our field of 80 for next week. Are you back with us next week, JK? That'll be fun. We'll do not only the first round of the playoffs, but we'll, if now I haven't gotten the official approval on this, but we've done it every other year, so I can't imagine it'd be any different. We'll run a full-on qualifier. And the cool thing about the full-on qualifier that we run during Horseplayer Happy Hour, a big moneymaker for our charities, the Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance, who do that critical work of accrediting these aftercare organizations, as well as our founding partners, the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. And I got to tell you, you got to do, the next time you have a chance to go visit one of these second chances programs, going to Wallkill Correctional Facility last week was awesome. Getting a chance to hang out with those guys and see their relationships up close with these horses, including the horse that I sponsor, Corinthians Joy. Perrin, very unhappy she didn't get to go on the trip, but they're not so keen about minors going into the prison. So, hey, because they know it.
That seems like it makes, I don't know, it seems like it makes a little bit of sense.
Not that I'd have any worry about these guys, but it is a prison, but it is a prison environment still. And it's it was actually like a scary place going through, and you're in the van where the doors only open from the outside. You get the littlest bit of a taste. All right, 2 minutes to post here for race number 7 at Aqueduct on this Thursday afternoon card. We saw Stephen McNatton. We saw what he was looking to do in this spot. What would you be looking to do, JK, in terms of making a wager?
Well, like we always talk about, in terms of making a wager, I'll get to that quickly, but in terms of the contest, and we are, it's a pick and pray contest, but just from a game theory standpoint, I think what your goal is what matters, right? If you're just trying to see, if I'm on the lead of the tour right now, I want to just kind of hold my position, maybe pick up some points. I'm going to try to take some safe approaches. It just all depends on what you want to do here. But from a wagering standpoint, the 3, Granadilla, we talked about it, Pete. I don't know if it was on these airwaves or on our the podcast that we did, but man, I really have my eye on Rick Dutrow. He had his time away, and he did his time away. And I think he had a great Saratoga summer. And then he's come back here. And I think that, I've always been told that he really was the king of Aqueduct, really understood how you had to have a horse fit there, train there, what horses excelled at what distances. And, he's won 3 races already at the meet at 21%. And he's in his career with first-time starters, 20% with first-time starters. And when you see one first-time out taking this kind of money like the 3 is, I think you want to pay attention. Now, you got to be careful. The presence of IRAD could throw that off a little bit. A lot of times people will just kind of by default play IRAD, but I'm against the 10 in here. Book of Wisdom, who I do like the draw for this horse, and the horse does have tactical speed, but has had a couple of opportunities to kind of jump up and run big races and hasn't necessarily done that. So I'm going to go with Dutrow right here and go with the 3, Granadilla.
I get it. And one other angle, very obvious with Granadilla or Granadilla, however we want to say it, Practical Joke, has been very successful as a first out sire as well. So I'm sure that's another thing that's attracting you in that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Practical Joke. And he's also got some siblings that were good. More Mischief. If I believe Mark Cassie had More Mischief with Talented Racehorse, New York bred as well. So there is some quality in the family.
I'm a little bit interested in Landed, the 7 runner. Another sire who's been doing tremendous with the first-time starters is Omaha Beach. And this one owned by Lyle Stables, who you don't necessarily think of for running off the screen first out, but trained by Wesley Ward and attracting John Velasquez. The interesting combination to follow, and certainly Ward needing no introduction when it comes to his ability to get horses ready first off the blocks.
Some fun stories about Omaha Beach when I caught up with Mark Toothaker this week from Spendthrift, and talked about how Richard Mandela, when they were kind of getting the stallion deal done, told him this might be the best horse I've ever trained. Told B. Wayne Hughes that as well. And then it's just we had a lot of fun conversation catching up with him. I think people that are wanting to know a little bit more about the breeding side of things and the stallion game, it's fun. And looking at the Spendthrift roster, man, they got a bunch of really cool horses, including Matoli, who is the sire of the 8, whose name I won't try to pronounce.
The 8's name is Equinox. I'm going to go with Equinox confidently on that. And Matoli started off pretty slow in terms of first-time starters, but has really picked up steam. And of course, the names are going to escape me, but I feel like has had a couple of stakes winners recently. And that's the kind of thing. As a horse player, I focus so much on, I just want to know if they're winning, right? I want to know if they're winning early. I want to know if they're winning. But in that industry, a horse like Matoli, you really, any sire, they burnish their reputation, not just with winners, but with stakes winners. So interesting to see Matoli have some more of those. He certainly ran like he'd be a good stallion. And they're off. Let's send this to the call.
And Fuega to the front. Book of Wisdom is racing in second. As moving up in between horses is Granadilla. Tavern is down at the rail in fourth. Then comes Fast and Frisky in fifth. To her outside is Aquatic, who is now back in sixth, 4.5 lengths from the lead. Then Landed, followed by Tsukimi. Dame Catherine is down at the rail. Farther back, Holder Close trails the field in 10th. En Fuega by 3/4 of a length. Granadilla on the outside, now getting closer through a quarter in 22 and 4/5 seconds. The front two have 2.5 lengths on a Tavern in third. And to her outside is a Book of Wisdom, who is moving up a spot. Then comes Landed in fifth, followed by Aquatic and Fast and Frisky. They are at the head of the stretch. The half went in 46 and 1/5 seconds. It is En Fuega closest to the rail. Book of Wisdom on the outside. Granadilla now back running in third. Landed is putting in a late run. En Fuega is holding on to the lead here. Book of Wisdom giving chase in second. And it is first-time starter En Fuega, who wins by 4.5 lengths at the end. Book of Wisdom held second. Landed was third.
Stephen McNatt now saying, why didn't I play that on both my entries? Great pick by him to get that first-time starter in. Flame Away, sire with some solid numbers, and precocious-looking dam side. I don't think I've ever seen McLean's music as a dam sire yet, but that's the case with En Fuega, who gets the job done there rather cozily in the end, in a race where it looked like being on the front certainly wasn't a bad thing, JK.
No, it wasn't a bad thing. The 10 Book of Wisdom actually ran pretty well in there also. The thing that I saw right here about this point of the stretch, it reminded me of something that I kind of picked up on this summer, which is Manny Franco is one hell of a finisher. And when you watch him, especially like standing at the rail, watching him live, he looks to have more torque in his body than the other guys do. And I don't mean that to be disparaging. I'm sure the other guys do certain things better than Manny does. But when it comes to kind of like really being able to use all of the leverage in his body to finish on a horse, you can even see it here. He just seems to have more torque and more finish when it comes down to that last 16th of a mile.
Well, it shows in the stats. I mean, one of the things I always look at with Manny in New York in sprint races, like I don't know why, but in particular, the ability to hold together sprint runners late. I mean, he's just got he gives you an edge in New York, especially with these sprints. And obviously, I keep saying in New York because that's where he's had most of his success. But a guy who is going to get more and more international opportunities as we see him in bigger and bigger barns as time goes on. In this case, scoring for Jeremiah Engelhart. Congrats to connections there. That will definitely have some major effects on the leaderboard. I'm wondering if some of the names in the leaderboard that we're used to seeing or took a little bit of a different approach today, trying to get themselves up into position, to win that berth in the 80-person tournament. I mean, that's worth that's worth a whole lot for folks that can do that. All right, why don't we get Vanessa involved, JK? We'll throw to our pre-tape. We have that other conversation we said we were going to have about T-shirts. Maybe we'll, rather than do that production meeting in the middle of the show, maybe I'll call you while the pre-tape is running. I already know what Vanessa said. You're just going to ask me what she said later, and then we can knock out that as well. So these people don't have to watch that. What do you think? Getting the thumbs up for sure. All right, let's get this ready for our pre-tape with the one, the only, the irrepressible Vanessa Ryle. Next up on the show to talk about the plethora of European Group 1 races, win and you're in races for the Breeders' Cup. We bring in one of our European experts, always popular on these airwaves. Sometimes she has to mime. Sometimes she actually gets to speak. Hopefully it'll be the latter this time. My colleague from Skye, the fabulously talented Vanessa Ryle. What's up, Vanessa?
Honestly, every time I want to like feel good about myself, I should just do a little segment with you because you always give me the best intros. Love it. And I'm in very good form because, as your viewers and listeners out there are about to see, we have one of the best weekends racing of the year over here in Europe. Absolutely brilliant. It's a great card in Newmarket for 2 days, not just the Friday, but the Saturday as well. And then Longchamp picks up Saturday and then finishes with a complete flurry of Group 1s on the Sunday, including, of course, the Arc de Triomphe. So I cannot wait.
Any chance you'll be making it to Paris for that, or are you UK bound?
No, very much UK bound. I am at the dizzy heights of Newcastle for an all-weather card on Friday, and then I'm on Skye I'm Skye Friday night and Skye Saturday afternoon at Ripon. So
we may overlap. Oh no, it's next week. I'm on Friday. Next week I'm on Friday for England opening day. This weekend it's Saturday, Sunday for me. But we'll see. That would be fun.
That would have been fun. One day that'll happen, and that'll be jolly. But not. They're not allowing it quite yet. Too much.
Probably wise. Let's start with a quick word on the Rockfell from Newmarket. This is the lone English win in your in race this weekend for the juvenile turf sprint, I believe. What are we looking at in this one?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's the highlight of the card on the Friday over the 7 furlongs, and Shuari will be your favorite for this. Now, this is a filly trained by Ollie Sangster. Many of your listeners and viewers will know the Sangster family through their bloodstock and breeding interest through the last many decades over here and in America too. Ollie Sangster, so part of that family, is now training, and basically he's had a brilliant time with his 2-year-olds this season since he took out his license. Young trainer, wanted to make a splash with the 2-year-olds, and that he has done. Shuari is the best of his 2-year-olds, a filly who at Sandown beat a horse called Fallen Angel, who's since won a Group 1 over in Ireland. She deserves to be the favourite, and she's got an abundance of ability. She showed plenty on the track, and her form stacks up. She has to take on Ylang, who was favourite when we last saw her at the Curragh in the Moyglare Stud Stakes, which is the race Fallen Angel won, the aforementioned Fallen Angel. So it's a crossover of form here. But she really bombed out that day for the Aidan O'Brien team. Pretty rare that happens. She was a short price, and although she didn't get the perfect run through, Pete, she wasn't at the races really. Lots of hope still around Ylang for Aidan O'Brien, and she might be the most likely Breeders' Cup option if you were looking at it from the win and you're in angle, which we are. But you do just have that question mark that you need her to bounce back. You know, a flop is not something you want to see on these 2-year-olds form book at this stage, and that's what she did last time. Meanwhile, Shuari has done nothing wrong, and I don't think Ollie Sangster would be. I think Ollie Sangster's the sort of trainer who'd be up for anything. So if she was to win this, would she head to the Breeders' Cup? Very possibly.
We should also mention Ollie Sangster been very involved working here at one point for the West Ward yard, and also helping with the Wesley Ward horses when they've gone to Ascot. So I think that connection to the U.S. might just suggest that a tilt here would be possible. And when you think about a new trainer with 2-year-olds, early speed, spent time with Wesley Ward, this may not be a coincidence. You know, there may be some techniques learned along the way that have helped his training with these very types. So that's a very interesting angle to pay attention to in terms of the Rockfell. And that's winning you're in action on Friday, which is always nice to wake up, throw on your ADW, and have some Breeders' Cup prep action as well. We're going to skip over Saturday. Well, not really. We'll be talking about that elsewhere in the show, all the North American action. But let's do this, a rundown. And this is, I know, tough to ask you to spend as little time on these races as we're going to, because you could do an hour easily on the races we're about to talk about in the next several minutes. From Longchamp on Sunday, there's a great card at Longchamp on Saturday too. But as for the win and you're in stuff, it's all taking place on Sunday, starting with the Lagardère Group 1 action. And this will be a pretty early morning, about 8:15, I think, in the USA for this one. Definitely worth getting up and putting on this French coverage. What do we think about the Lagardère?
So I love this race. The 2-year-old races at Longchamp on the Sunday are just brilliant because it brings together the French form and the English form, and of course the Irish form. But the one thing you guys should note for this year is that, you know, it's been well documented that the French horses, 2-year-olds and older horses, just their crop seems, the level of ability seems to have dropped in recent years, whereas this season's been a real turnaround. And you'll see it when we talk about the older horses as well. They've just got a much stronger home team this year. And in the Lagardère, they should kick off with a win with Bouvatier for Jan Barbaro. This horse is 4 from 4, this Lope de Vega colt, and he does it any which way you like. He's won over 5, he's won over 6, he's won over 7. He's climbed up through the ranks. He's won a listed race, a Group 3. He does it cozy as you like. He comes with one fell swoop, very French style. He just looks like an absolute class angle. Now, even though he's won over 5 and 6, 7 and above is definitely going to be where he's at next year, Miler, and after that, upwards, you would think, given his breeding. I'm really excited to see him. He's one of my favorite 2-year-olds in training, Bouvatier, and I hope that it'll be one for the home team. Aidan O'Brien's got a couple of runners in there, and there's an Andre Fabre runner in there called Evade, who's already been beaten by Bouvatier. But I think everything will have to step up to beat Bouvatier. It's not just style, but he's also got substance, and he's showing himself to be versatile. Ground, trip, tactics. There's just not a huge amount not to like about Bouvatier, Pete.
And we'll be taking a look back at these races as early as next week too, and have a chance to go deeper once we have an idea a bit more about not only how they're going to perform on Sunday, but maybe a clue or two from the post-race interviews about who may be making the trip over to Santa Anita. And with that, we'll keep with 2-year-olds, and we'll talk about the Boussac, which goes as the very next race, 8:50 Eastern time Sunday morning.
Yeah, mile fillies to the 4, 2-year-old fillies for the Marcel Boussac, and this is a win and you're in for the juvenile fillies turf. Bouvatier in the previous race was kind of the standout, whereas in this race, we're looking at it now from an anti-post point of view because we haven't got final declarations and jockey bookings. And this is a much more wide open event. Again, as you would expect, Aidan O'Brien sends opera singer into this, the Justify filly, who's got plenty of experience, and she's already proven herself at the mile, so she's an obvious one. But I was so taken with Carl Burke's filly. He's gone so well with his 2-year-olds this year. He's just been having an excellent time with Carl Burke. And Darnation recently won at Doncaster in the May Hill Stakes, again proving herself at the mile. And she was still very much a work in progress that day, Pete. But my goodness, I was so taken with her. She was strong through the line in the end once she got the hang of it late on. There's just loads to like about her. My worry would be it will be a quick turnaround. But as we've discussed on this pod before, Carl Burke wants to send as many horses as he possibly can, is my understanding, to the Breeders' Cup this year. And Darnation could be on the flight. But as with Bouvatier in the Colts 2-year-old race, and Darnation, as I'm talking about her now, in the fillies 2-year-old race, both of them have their so far want for cutting the ground, which they obviously won't get in Santa, and it's unlikely they're going to get in Santa Anita as they need. So ground, bit of a concern for these 2-year-olds I picked out for you, but these are just a couple of the horses I'm excited to see. There's a decent enough home contingent for the Marcel Boussac, but it's not as strong as it was for the Lagardère for the Colts.
Let's get to the featured race of the day. We'll skip over the Arabian and we'll get to the Qatar Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe, which is, of course, among the most famous races in the world. And while nobody's idea of a prep race per se, a lot of history tying in runners from here who then come over and do well in the Breeders' Cup turf, sometimes with a race in between. Who do you like in this year's running?
Oh, well, it's so exciting, Pete. Honestly, this race has been talked about a lot. There's a lot of content out there, and there's some great things to read and watch in the build-up to this if you really want to get stuck into the Arc de Triomphe. Because, as I said and set up at the start of this spiel, the French have a much stronger contingent this year, and that's what kind of makes it so exciting. They want to keep it at home, and then you're not even sort of bringing even in the Japanese who are desperate to win it, and they have a runner this year in Through Seven Seas who we'll get to in due course. But in terms of the French contingent, many hopes rely on Ace Impact, this unbeaten cracksman colt for Jean-Claude Rouget, been off the track for nearly 50 days since we last saw him in Group 2 company. That was when beating a good colt of Joseph O'Brien's in Al Riffa, did it very snugly that day. But crucially before that, he put up a huge performance in the Prix de Jockey Club, the Group 1. And that was where he really shot to prominence in terms of the ARC betting. Now he has to step up in trip because he goes from the 10 furlongs to the 12 furlongs here. So that is the big question mark with Ace Impact. Let's keep it simple. Do I think he'll stay another 2 furlongs? Yes, I do. I think he's got so much ability that he falls into that category of the sort of horse that is good enough that 2 furlongs surely isn't going to be able to stop him. I think, you know, on his breeding side, you can see that he'll stay the 1.5 miles. And there's just, he's so classy in the way he moves through a race, what he can do in the closing stages. Again, look and read into it, but the sectionals that he's notched up, this Ace Impact, specifically in the Prix de Jockey Club, people were waxing lyrical all the time, boys, as you call them. But so he's the big French hope, along with Feed the Flame, who didn't win his prep run, but he is he's proven at this trip. Now he's beaten by Fantastic Moon, who reopposes when they met at Longchamp for their prep run in the Prix Neil. Now Feed the Flame had to come from off the pace that day and was just given simply too much to do. He's a 10-to-1 shot anti-post, and as a sort of wise guy selection, that's where I was leaning into. But between Ace Impact and Feed the Flame in the betting is Continuous for Aidan O'Brien, who's been supplemented. And again, so much data going around for this, but turns out Aidan O'Brien has a terrible record with 3-year-olds in the Arc de Triomphe. And Continuous is a 3-year-old recently seen winning the St. Ledger. So we know he stays, but he has to put all the stats boys wrong, Continuous, because all the stats are against him. He has been supplemented and it cost them 120k to supplement him for this race. So they wouldn't have done that lightly. He's next best in the betting. Then it's on to the older horses, Pete. Hookham and Westover taking each other on. They last met in the King George, with Hookham getting the best of Westover. They're the UK representatives. And then further down, you've got the likes of a Champion Stakes winner in Bay Bridge, Fantastic Moon from well, we've seen them in France, but from Germany, and Through Seven Seas. Over from Japan. Everybody who follows the Japanese racing has said that she will need to step up on what she's done so far. And then the final horse to mention, but it doesn't cover the full field, is just Free Wind, because of course Frankie Dettori's last ride in the Arc de Triomphe will be on this mare. They've kept her in training to try win a Group 1, and it's interesting that they've come here. She's a lively outsider. But back at the top of the betting, my each way selection would be Feed the Flame. And I'm all aboard the French team. I think Ace Impact is going to be very hard to beat.
This is a great storyline, intersections of all kinds of stuff, absolute must watch, and several runners who you would think would be making either the detour or the planned tour to come to the United States afterwards. I mean, wouldn't you think we'll see a few of these names?
I think we probably would. Yeah. I mean, obviously, we saw the Japanese with such success over in America last year. So what would they bring over in terms of, you know, would Through Seven Seas be an option for them? They travel with her. Then of the French contingent, Ace Impact and Feed the Flame, I'm not sure. I wouldn't know about their hopes of coming over for the Breeders' Cup. But a horse like Westover, they've traveled with Westover before. They like traveling with him. He's become very versatile. He's grown up a lot this year. You know, would they travel with him? Hookham does need cut in the ground, and they've always been very sure about that. So, you know, he's won on good, but they would, I don't know if they travel Hookham. I think of the ones there, maybe Westover would be the most likely to travel. And then in behind, some of those bigger priced horses like Through Seven Seas potentially. But as you say, it's just the lovely crossover of as the Arc de Triomphe should be. It's a real international field. It's got a really sort of every team are really confident about their horse this year, which I just love in the build up to a race. And because there's not an absolute standout, Pete, it's meant that more people have taken a swing. Like Babe Ridge, for example. I mean, he may do the double of the Arc de Triomphe and the Champion Stakes in terms of running in both, but I think that's unlikely. So in my opinion, they've decided to go to the Arc, as a first option, which I just think is a sign of the race itself, that it's so people are viewing it as quite an open contest. Because yes, Ace Impact has been sparkling, but yes, he does have that stamina concern. So as a result, more people are taking a chance, more teams are taking a chance. It's just a lovely depth of race, Pete.
10:05 Eastern for that one on Sunday morning. Must-watch stuff with major implications. We just have a few minutes left. We do have 2 more races I want to touch on quickly, starting with the very next one, the Prix de l'Opera. What do we think about this?
Yeah, Prix de l'Opera, this for the fillies and mares, well, for the mares over the 10 furlongs, older horses to the fore here. And again, not a particularly strong race, no absolute standout. Aidan O'Brien sends Jackie O, but she's been beaten by Lumiere Rock, who would have to step up from her Group 2 win when we last saw her for Joseph O'Brien. But they're very hopeful that she is really on the development, and she's already been to France and run well in France. I think it's interesting that they're choosing to step up to Group 1 level in this. But they've all got to take on Blue Rose Sen, the 3-year-old for Christopher Head's operation. Now, this filly, when she won the Prix de Diane, the Group 1 in the middle of summer, she was all the rage for the Arc de Triomphe itself. Things haven't gone straightforward for her since. She was a very short price favorite at Goodwood in the Nassau. She got beat. Then she was supposed to be on a comeback mission in the Vermeil, and she got beat again. Now, that race didn't go to plan for her, but she's disappointed since that Chantilly win in the in the Diane. And she comes here to the Prix de l'Opera on a bit of a recovery mission, but you can't get out of your head what she did in the Diane. And I think she'll be bouncing back to form here, and she could be one for the Breeders' Cup.
She was mentioned as a possibility, listed in the pre-entries last year before ultimately not making the trip over in the juvenile. So that, and I think there was maybe a minor physical issue that led to that. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all if she runs well to see her make the trip to our shores. Let's hear your thoughts on the Prix de l'Abbé before I let you get out of here, Vanessa.
Yeah, last one, sprinters to the fore. Again, strong UK contingent, and the horse is at bigger prices. You've got the likes of Equilateral in there, Kurdos, Equality, Art Power, who brings all his best form to the Curragh. But right down at the bottom currently, hopefully she runs. We are doing this pre-final decks, is Highfield Princess, the mare we've spoken so much about on this show, Pete. Me and you have discussed so much. She's planning on running here. They're already talking about wanting to get back for a trip to the Breeders' Cup, but they are an operation who would appreciate the win you're in. You know, they're not a big, massive billionaire ownership gang, Highfield Princess's owners. So they come here. She hasn't had the season she had last season. That's been well documented. And there is a question mark at the age of 6. Is she as good as she was this time last year? And the answer is probably not. But this is not the strongest of sprinting Group 1s, Pete. And I think if it goes to plan for her, she hasn't been running badly. She just needs to get out a little bit sharper. I think she can cope with the cut in the ground, however that falls. And everything else in behind her on picks of her best form would have to step up dramatically. Art Power is probably one of the bigger dangers in there, but from the UK team. But I'm really, I mean, I know we've discussed her plenty. I really hope she wins this. And then I hope she takes a win in her in ticket and boards her flight to Santa Anita.
That's what I'm rooting for. I would love to get to see that story play out. Vanessa, really appreciate you. You're going to be a big part of everything we've got cooking from now through to the Breeders' Cup. You got your plane ticket? You got your hotel? You all set?
I'm all set. Yeah, I hope we'll be checking in a good bit more in the month of October in the build-up. I genuinely cannot wait. I'm so revved for it. I've said it before on the show. I think we're going to have a really good team this year. And, you know, to go to Santa Anita for a Breeders' Cup, potentially Frankie Dettori's last one, with a really strong Irish and UK contingent, as somebody in my role in life, I'm not sure it gets much better. So I can't wait.
and start working. We're going to do this karaoke bit out there. Start working on your karaoke songs, okay?
You know, I was asked to mime in the school choir. Like, you don't want me doing karaoke. I don't know. Like, I'm up for anything. I'd jump out of a plane for you, Peter Fornatandi. But
that's in a future year. We'll do that. We did the hot air balloon. Maybe we'll be jumping out of parachutes at some point. Naomi will be into it. I physically don't think I could do it, but maybe we'll get there. All right, Vanessa, great stuff.
Pete. It's all in your mind. You can do anything.
We'll be talking soon.
Goodbye.
Muted. She's the best. Great stuff from Vanessa as ever. How about you? Would you jump out of a plane and any chance of that? You won't even sleep in the bunker because you're afraid of ghosts. I can't imagine you're jumping out any planes.
There's a 0% chance I would jump out of a plane. There's a better chance that I would join the Pick Six boys than jump out of a plane.
You could be their apprentice. Old school in the money.
Do they even exist anymore?
I see one guy's name every once in a while. He wins a tournament, nobody cares, and then we turn the page. Let's talk about some of these great comments we got. What do we think? And this was breaking news. I don't know. Maybe you spoke with Mark Toothaker about it because I haven't had a chance to listen yet. It is in my podcast queue. But what do we think of Tamara not having a prep race before the Breeders' Cup, Jonathan?
You know, it's one of those situations when Hall of Fame trainers make decisions, I don't argue with them.
My thoughts exactly. And
if it's a lower level trainer who hasn't won as many races, then you could start to ask questions. But I think Richard Mandella knows how to win a Breeders' Cup race. I think he's familiar with the pedigree, and I'll defer to what he decides is best.
He knows the family, I think it's safe to say. And that was one of those workouts the other day that you don't have to be a workout expert to look at and see that she's in fine fettle. They're not ducking it. Because they're not ducking the chandelier because she doesn't look right. There must be. I'd love to hear him elaborate. To hear a brilliant horseman like that decide. It definitely seems in a surprising way, maybe like a guy I think of as an old school guy taking a page from some of the new school guys and having that much time between. But like you say, if he's doing it, I think he's doing it for a reason. Did you have a chance to see that work? Do you know what I mean? It was just one of those that kind of caught the eye even to a layperson.
I didn't see it. But I feel the same way about like Prince of Monaco. I feel the same way about Arabian Night. I feel the same way about White Barrio. When you have a high percentage trainer, a well accomplished trainer making decisions, it doesn't affect me.
Let's take another look at where this leaderboard is after that race, if you don't mind, Craig. We'll get that up there. John Gasper brings back one of my favorite gags from these Horseplayer Happy Hour shows. So glad JK able to join between the Uber pickups here. We appreciate that anytime we're in the car. Richard wants to know about my favorite ARC winner. I'll go with the first one. There's so many. I'll go with the first one I saw, Hurricane Run. Frank Scatoni and I were there for a week of racing in Paris. And there he is, assuming the lead there or staying in the lead. Stephen McNatten still running 1-5. What does he have to do? Does he have to run 1-2 to win this thing? That's going to be a hell of a story. Anyway, he's 7-4 cold double to close this thing out. Let's vet those picks really quick, JK, and see what kind of a chance we think he's got. Do you give any count to the 7 here and to the 4 in the next race?
Absolutely. On the 7 here, Mr. JT, I like when horses, are claimed for a certain number, then they run well in a starter optional or a starter, a starter allowance race, and then they won that race and they come back in for a tag. To me, it's just realistic placement. Look, this horse was fortunate enough on the day to win a starter race. Sometimes it's a 5-year-old horse. You never know where the ceiling might be with a horse. Maybe has some light issues, maybe hard to train. Let's just go ahead and if someone wants to take him, then we'll take him. We had a great time with him, and so I like Mr. JT in this spot. And then the 4, Maxwell Esquire. Look, he hasn't been the same horse, that's for sure, that he used to once be. But I guess it's always possible for him to find that form reversal. I don't see anything necessarily on paper that suggests he's going to kind of come back to that. He is cutting back from the 8 furlongs and getting some good ground last time at Saratoga, but he hasn't really been himself in quite some time.
And that race off turf now, so that race it's cut up quite a bit. I thought, unfortunately, it looked like a bit of a professional.
Did he scratch then? Maybe.
No,
maybe he's scratched.
He's in.
He is.
He's running, but I think it's just another added question mark with the way that one's cut up. Win for Gold, I thought looked pretty good. What about this 8th race?
Well, I'd like to. I will say this. I'd like to know, Pete. I don't know if Steven's watching, but I'd like to know if Steven knew that this horse race was going to be off. Did he handicap early this morning and pop him in? It just doesn't seem like a horse that you'd want off the turf.
It's interesting. If you are watching, Steven, or if one of your pals is, holler at us. We'd love to hear. We love the interactions on this show. It's one of the things that makes it really fun. It's one of the things we're going to be doing a lot more of when we do these next few weeks are always great, following along with these qualifiers and having a chance to bring in some more guests and do some cool stuff. Richard asked a historical question about Half Bridled. I thought Half Bridled ran in the 2-turn prep. I think it's definitely unusual. If only there was a way to quickly look up a horse, I would just check on Half Bridled. I guess over at Equiface I can. I think it's very unusual historically, but that is a great question. That would be the one. Another one of Mandela's very talented juveniles that we can look up quickly. What else this weekend, Jonathan? You're not working, so you sort of have the opportunity to dip in where you want in the races you want. Are you going to be participating in the new Santa Anita $1 pick six?
You cut out a little bit. I think you add the $1 pick six in Santa Anita, and anytime there's a pick six that's not 20 cents, it always has my attention, at least to a certain extent.
So Half Bridled won her maiden at Del Mar, then won the debutante at Del Mar, then won the Oak Leaf, and then won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. So the more traditional.
Pete, I don't have a good internet right now, so can you look up Beholder? Because I want to say that she was planning to run in that juvenile sprint race they had for a little while.
Yes.
And I think they made the decision to run her in the I can't remember what happened there. So I'm thinking maybe she was one of those horses that stretched out.
She was cross-entered. Let's see let's check out her first races. So she won in June. No, she actually ran 4th on debut in June. Then won her maiden early in the Del Mar meet. Was actually 2nd in the debutante. 2nd in an allowance. It's so funny. It's already you go back even 10 years, it's such a different game. Let's look how long that allowance race was. Curious to see this as we wait for the website. So then the allowance race that she ran in, sorry, I'm struggling looking through these old charts to try to figure things out. 6 furlongs on the dirt. So she'd only run, so in that sense, she'd never gone further than 7 before the Breeders' Cup Classic. So I mean, yeah, that's Breeders' Cup Fillies. So that's kind of a case in point right there.
Yep, 100%.
So you. Oh, wait a second. Are we getting ready to load here? We're getting ready to load. Let's bring this race in. Who would you have picked in here? Would you made such a good case for Steven's 7 that I was thinking maybe that's who you were going to pick if I'd just thrown it to you.
I didn't see the prices, but I had no problem with the 7. I was against the 10, and I could have taken the 8 for 10 strike. It would have been the 7 or the 8 for me. Probably the 8 based on that price. I think the 8 was 13-1. I would have taken the 8.
All right, we're off. Let's send it to Mr. MBL.
In 5th, Gandy dancing on the far outside with Mr. JT in between horses. It's a length and a half to cousin Andrew, and then a break of almost 4 lengths back to the 2 trailers, Joker Boy and Winning Drive in 10th. The quarter went in 22 and 2/5 seconds, so they're moving right along here. Ensign Parker leads by 2 lengths. Never Early is down at the rail. Bourbon's Hope is alongside in 3rd. Mr. JT is on the move in 4th. followed by Gandy Dancing, who is way out in the middle of the track, and Striking Speed.
Of course,
It
it's
is
coming.
Eddie Parker who's holding the lead through a half and 45 and 2. Mr. JT continues to gain. Striking Speed down at the rail, then Never Early and Bourbon's Hope. Ensign Parker looking to go wire to wire, and he has got it wrapped up under Dylan Davis. Looked like Bourbon's Hope got second over Mr. JT.
That was interesting. It looked for a second there to me like the 7 was going to make a winning run. Just looked to flatten out as the speed held in the lane once again. Nice price winner that could have contest shake-up possibilities. We'll go and check that leaderboard one more time before we get out of here. I know, JK, you've got places to go, people to see. I can why don't we just chat for a minute here, then we'll let you get out of here. I'll finish up chatting with the commenters. I do want to say before you go, to encourage people to stick around, because there's another live stream just after this on many of these same channels. If you're watching on the Breeders' Cup channels, you'll have to either hop over to Equibase channels or stick with the In the Money channels, or check out on social at In the Money Media. To probably the easiest thing to do is just go to the In the Money YouTube page, and Matt Vagvolgi and I are going to be doing a little race lens analysis of some of the key preps this weekend and debuting a very special offer. Here's Steve McNatton chiming in. That's great, Steve. Thank you for doing that. In regards to 4 and last, hoping it would go on the turf, but the bullet work made me hope for a change in form. Fair enough. I mean, when you're looking for horses at prices in contests, an equipment change, a bullet work, these are the kind of things that give you potentially hope to get them in there. I did. Did you agree with me? That race looked like it might come apart there for a second, and then it just the speed held again. Is that based on the 2 races we saw? I'm thinking it was not a bad thing to be on the lead today at Aqueduct.
No, absolutely. It feels like being forward wasn't the worst place to be, but that's just dirt racing in America to me. I think that more often than not, being forward is the place you want to be.
Oh, no doubt about it. But just for me, there was a moment in that race where if there was a good, decent in running price on the 7, I would have taken it. And it just, the run just didn't materialize the way that I thought it was going to. Any closing thoughts from you, JK, before we let you get on with the school pickup here?
Yeah, just make sure it's like you said, there's a lot of big preps this weekend that can lead in to those 14 championship races. Start paying attention now. If you, like you said it the other day on a show, if you could formulate strong opinions leading into this weekend, then the results of this weekend can have a bigger effect on your future opinion rather than just kind of being caught off guard by what happens this weekend. I think that can go a long way.
I have an analogy. It's almost like, you ever do this? I love the look ahead lines in football. I think they give such insight when there's a big difference between the line the week of and the look ahead line. Very often, that's not because this new information has changed things so much as people overreacting to what they just saw. And I feel like when you do a good job handicapping these races, that's almost like your own look ahead line. You have an expectation of what's supposed to happen that's then going to make you look back at that with a little bit more of a clever view. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. No, I agree with you completely.
All right, you get on to pick up. I'm going to chat with the crew. I'll go through this stuff, and then we'll dance from there, buddy. JK, we'll see you soon.
I'll see you guys later.
Ooh, I like the confetti. That's gonna be a hell of a pain in the butt to clean out of his car. Stephen McNatton still in first by 20 cents to Wayne Tam. He's got that 4-runner in the last race, and where's that second entry? Because in a funny way, that's the important one at this point. So this is going to be very interesting. There is a 4 in front, so the most points he could get out of this would then be 180 is how that works if I'm remembering that right. Yeah, which would put this dead tight. I honestly wish we could stick through to the end to follow that drama. I will be watching, but I'll be on a different sponsored live stream, so we can't talk about it. We can't talk about it too much. Appreciate Richard in the comments. Stephen also right. Richard points out that it was executive privilege who beat Beholder in that allowance race. Pretty good stuff. And then, really appreciate everybody chiming in today. Let me know if you have a last minute question before we get out of here. Reminder again, We've got so much stuff going on. A whole special show Friday, Santa Anita. That's cooking already. We probably will have on the In the Money Plus side some extra coverage as far as the ARC goes on Sunday. More Breeders' Cup, but winning you're in action there. Might touch on some of the new market stuff as well. But it's been such another fun year of Horseplayer Happy Hour, and we appreciate folks who want to chime in and give their attention to this interconnected series of contests. And again, the best is yet to come, because we're going to be punching tickets every week through those direct qualifiers. It costs a bit more, but feel good in knowing that that house cut is going to go to these very important charities. And every time I get to go to one of these Second Chances program, I just wish there could be more of them. You get to talk to these. There are women programs too, but I've only been to the male ones. And I mean, just life transforming experiences of people who, made mistakes earlier in their life, and horses really help to get them back on track. Many of whom want to work in the racing industry, which is also kind of cool. And I think it's worth supporting. And of course, Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance, accrediting these organizations is key. As we've seen, there are, some strange people who try to do some odd thing. Just look around the Twitter platform and you'll see examples of strange people doing strange things without, getting that banner of authenticity and accreditation. And the TAA make sure that is what happens. So not really going anywhere. Going to wrap this one a minute early. Go get a cup of coffee and then come down here for the Raceland show we're about to do. Mark your calendar. Every Thursday between now and Breeders' Cup, we're going to be right here from 4 to 5, and we want you to join us, and we appreciate all the support we've gotten throughout the season. Also want to say a special shout out to our friends at the Breeders' Cup, especially Haley and Justin, for all the support that they provide. Dave Vader over at CTP helping out with these leaderboards. That's been invaluable work. Producer Craig and at times producer AJ also making these shows much easier to do, allowing us to bring you this content. We would be nothing without you guys, and we thank you for supporting us through our content and supporting our sponsors by betting events like the Breeders' Cup and buying lots of cool stuff from the Breeders' Cup merch store. I was over there today and checking out the JK shirts that they have are amazing, and there's some really particularly hip t-shirt designs this year, hoping to debut a couple of those in the coming weeks as well. For the Breeders' Cup, for In the Money Media, for Vanessa Ryle, for Jonathan Kinchin, I'm Peter Thomas Fornatel. May you win all your photos.